Hi everybody and welcome to Vlogmas, and if you're new to our channel, I'm Jane and my husband Mike is behind the camera. We're British early retirees, debt and mortgage free, and living a thrifty, frugal and money saving life here in Brittany in northwest France. And we're bringing you some extra videos for Christmas. We hope that you enjoy them. We might cook, we might make something, we'll share something Christmassy with you. We hope you enjoy the video. I'm going to start my pie by making my pastry. I have 400 grams of gluten-free bread flour, which already has xanthan gum in it. I've added a good pinch of salt and 200 grams of cold unsalted butter. I'm just going to whiz this up to breadcrumbs, add in 2 beaten eggs, so it's a pastry dough, and I'll just leave it in the fridge for at least an hour. There is my finished pastry. I always find gluten-free pastry an absolute challenge, so whenever I make gluten-free pastry, I make a load and then I've always got some spare to freeze another time. There are ways that you can make gluten-free puff pastry. I find just regular pastry challenging enough for me, so regular pastry is what we're going to have. I ended up putting 3 eggs into this and a few drops of ice cold water as well before it formed into a dough. This now needs to go into the fridge for an hour. So my pastry is chilling in the fridge. I've got half a large butternut squash here that I've chopped up, and I've peeled it and chopped it. You can leave the peel on if you like it. I've peeled it and I've chopped it. I've sprinkled it with a little bit of salt, tossed it in a little bit of olive oil. This is now going to go into a hot oven. I think it's going to take 20 to 30 minutes because I want this to be soft enough that I can mash it. Here's some more ingredients for my filling. I've got mushrooms, I've got onions, I have ready prepared chestnuts here. It's really common to buy them like this. This is just sold in Lidl here in France. If you can buy chestnuts, buy chestnuts. You could put any other nuts in this, I believe. You could use walnuts, that would be really good. But chestnuts are the absolute best for us. I think chestnuts just say Christmas, don't they? And then we've got sage and we've got thyme for seasoning. And we're going to saute this in a little olive oil. So I'm going to get them all very finely chopped, and I am going to do that in my food processor. But obviously, you can just as easily do it with a knife. And then I'm going to saute them. And when everything's sauteed and the butternut squash is soft, I'll mash it all together and form it to the inside of my veggie Wellington. And there, everything is all chopped up. I've got the mushrooms, I've got the onions, I've got the sage and the thyme, and there I used the whole jar of chestnuts. This will drastically reduce down when it is sauteed. I've got probably 5 tablespoons of olive oil in there because I just know the mushrooms and the chestnuts will completely absorb all of that. And I really want to saute this really, really well. Not to the point of crispiness, but very well cooked. We're going to have roast potatoes and roast parsnips with this. So I'm part cooking the potatoes and the parsnips first. When those are completely cooked, those will be roasted in a little salt and olive oil. Here is the sauteed chestnuts, mushrooms and onions. Now traditionally this on its own is used as a stuffing with poultry, and it is absolutely delicious. I would maybe, to make this a stuffing, I might add some egg to this to make it completely stick together. But I wish you could taste this. The mushrooms and the chestnuts and onions together, it's so incredibly sweet. And because I'm going to make a mushroom gravy to go with it, I've got some of the sauteed basically the mushrooms, the chestnuts and the onions in here. And I will make a gravy by adding stock to this and thickening this with flour. But what I will do with that is use my blender stick to make sure it is completely blended so there's no lumps in it at all. So it'll have that lovely sweet chestnut mushroom gravy to go with it. Here is my roasted butternut squash. And every time I cook this, I am reminded that it is probably one of my very most favourite things to eat is roasted pumpkins of any kind. They just scream winter yumminess, don't they? So that is going to go into the pot. I'm going to mash up the butternut squash, mix it all together, and then I'm going to leave it all to go cold so I can then put it into my veggie Wellington. So I've used my potato masher, I've mashed up all my butternut squash, and now everything's going to be combined and allowed to cool. Here is my gluten-free pastry. I want to share with you how I get my gluten-free pastry to just stay together is add more eggs. Add more eggs. I find if I use one egg, it just falls apart. If I use 2 or 3 eggs in place of water, it just stays together. And I've tried to get my pastry into a squarish shape as possible because I'm going to put my filling on it and then fold it over and tuck it under. So it all stays in place. There we go. And the good thing about this pastry is you can make it in advance. The good thing about the filling here, again, is you could make that in advance. It'll be okay in your fridge for 2 or 3 days, and you could make the whole thing 2 or 3 days in advance of Christmas and then just keep it in the fridge and then just bake it when you are ready. There's my chestnut butternut squash and onion and mushroom filling. I've brushed around the edges with the pastry. I am now going to assemble this into some kind of a Wellington, and if you could all cross your fingers for me, we will hope that it will all stay in one piece. I've given it a kind of a crimp around the outside and I've glazed this with an egg wash, and what I'm going to do with this, so the pastry doesn't just completely obliterate and fall apart in the oven, is this is now going back in the fridge for at least half an hour to chill this pastry, because otherwise it just kind of disintegrates when you put it in the oven. It must go in the oven cold. I'm going to share my gravy with you. In here I have some of the filling of my vegetable Wellington, the chestnuts, the butternut squash, the onions, and I also have the water from the potatoes that I cooked. In here I have 2 teaspoons of butter that I've melted, and I will stir through some corn flour to thicken it, add both of them and then add it to the heat. If it is too thick, which it probably will be, I will add some of the water from the vegetables that I'm cooking. And here is my butternut squash and chestnut Wellington out of the oven. I'm going to leave it to cool for just a couple of minutes and get it transferred from the baking tray onto the cutting board. It's going to make it much easier for me to serve, to cut and to serve. I'll get the rest of the vegetables plated up first, and then I will be ready to plate it all up finally. And here are the beautifully roasted potatoes and parsnips. Oh, I am so pleased with that homemade pastry. Gorgeously roasted potatoes, steamed vegetables, that's absolutely superb. Mushroom, chestnut and onion gravy. Oh, absolutely gorgeous. And as we've made this for our Sunday lunch, I mean, I would be delighted if I was having this for a special roast dinner, a vegetable Wellington. I think that is absolutely delicious. Oh, I can't wait to eat this. Now Mike's filming this. What do you think this looks like, Mike?
That looks absolutely gorgeous. Very special indeed.
Well, it's lovely. What a perfect Christmas lunch that would be. And for us today, what an absolutely gorgeous Sunday lunch. Thank you so much for watching, and happy Vlogmas to everybody.